basically, you know, explains, your attitude, how you view certain things in life. Then there's discipline. The master key to success lies in discipline. We are surrounded by enticing temptations and obstacles that deflect us from our goals.
Now, can I ask you guys a question?
Sure.
Who cares?
Well, if you're looking at it strictly from a religious point of view.
No. I'm not. I'm looking at it through an evolution. You see, millions and billions of years ago, I was a rock. And the rock fired up, cooled down, created an ooze, and out of the ooze came the first living cell. The first living cell became some sort of half-breed of a fish with lungs or gills. Obviously, it lived in the water, but then climbed out of the water. So I don't know how it did that with gills or with lungs. But somehow, this living cell organism became a little animal. The animal crawled out of the water and became everything that we know. But here's the problem. Evolution is a chemical process. It is molecules bumping into molecules. It is protoplasm bumping into protoplasm. Who cares about control? Who cares about identity? And who cares about anything that any of us feel? You know why? Because you are not sharing the same brain as me. I don't care.
You're going to have to repeat the last part that you just said.
Welcome.
I said we're not sharing the same brain, Mark. So why would I care, even from a worldly perspective? Why do I care about those three aspects of life? Why would I care about those? If I'm just protoplasm floating around the universe, and there's no purpose to any life, we're just molecules in motion. We are what Richard Dawkins says, dancing to the sound of our own DNA. Why would I care about any of those three aspects of life?
Because we live in the here and now, and that's what these are supposed to be addressing.
Who cares? Your here and now is different. Hey, Mark, your here and now is different than my here and now. We don't share the same brain. Agree?
That's true.
Mark, agree?
Yes.
Okay. So your morality standards and your life standards are not the same as mine. Correct? They can't be. Because morality and logic...
I don't know, and I'll tell you why. I think that there's one standard for morality, and...
and where does that come from?
I had this discussion with an assistant principal, because I used to teach a unit when I was way back when on ethics and morality. And we used to do moral dilemmas and such. And my assistant principal said to me, well, whose morality are you teaching? And I said, there really is only one morality.
You can't confirm that.
I said, if you want to go back to the golden rule, you treat other people the way you would like to be treated.
Okay. Well, let's look at that in India right now. You see, in India right now, they don't have a food shortage. They got plenty of food, but they're starving their children to death because they'd rather feed their ancestors the cow.
I know.
Okay, but their morality is different, Mark. Hey, Mark.
Yeah.
Their morality is different than yours. We're not sharing the same brain. I'm talking strictly from a materialistic evolutionary perspective. I'm not that. I'm making a point right now that those things sound wonderful. And I agree with some of those that you guys said. But we need to talk about tonight is how do we know that those things are good, and where do they come from? Which is something you guys have a hard time answering. This is the difference between life and death. You see, you either believe that life and all source comes from God, and if you do believe that, you got to confirm what God it is. Can't be all gods. All gods don't act that way. For instance, the Islam, God said it's okay to lie. It's okay to kill if you're not a Muslim. The God from the Bible says to love your enemies. Do good to those who persecute you. Do good. Here's the golden rule. Golden rule. Are you ready, Mark? Mm-hmm. The golden rule is to do good to others as you would want them to do to you. Correct?
Right.
Okay, but that comes from God from the Bible. So are you saying that all source of truth comes from the Bible?
Well, then that's what I'm saying.
Okay.
That's how I.
So let's confirm that right now.
I was brought up.
So why aren't you guys repenting and putting your trust in Jesus Christ then?
Well, mainly because as Jewish people, we were brought up believing, there are Jews who believe that Jesus existed, but then there are Jews who say he never existed at all. I mean, if somebody was to ask me,
mm-hmm.
I would say that Jesus was a great rabbi, a great teacher, in many respects even a prophet.
Mm-hmm.
Son of God,
uh-huh.
That's where I would draw the line.
Uh-huh.
Okay?
Right. Okay, so let's go back to the origins of life. Who created all of life? Who created all of life? Who created? Did anybody create, or did the Big Bang create?
Excuse me?
Did the Big Bang evolution create, or did God create?
Evolution. But then you would say.
Okay, so you still are stuck with this evolutionary thing. So you believe that all life comes from evolution, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so God had nothing to do with that.
Well, that's where the questioning comes in.
Okay, so you don't really, Mark, you don't really believe then. You're not a real believer. You believe in more of a materialistic, atheistic sort of universe where God could exist. We don't really know for sure. What I really count on is in science.
No,
really, you really just count on science.
I do believe that God exists, that there is a God.
Okay, then why don't you believe that He created? Why don't you believe in the book of Moses, Genesis? What's wrong?
I think I mentioned this to you. I had asked my sister's rabbi about this once. Okay, he is a conservative rabbi, not Orthodox, not Reformed. And he said, as a man of God, as a rabbi, he believes that what it says in the Bible is true. But also, he says, on the other side of the coin, as an educated 21st century human being, having learned certain things in college or read certain things, that leaves room for evolution as well as creationism. Okay? So it depends which hat he's wearing, I guess. And I think there are many people like that. I guess I would have to say that I'm like that. I was brought up believing that God created man in his image. But let's face it, there's too much evidence to prove that the earth is millions of years old and that certain forms of life existed before man walked erect, on 2 feet. No, science is using a religion to trick you into thinking that their faith is right. And the reality is there's too much evidence that God created. And if you want to, we can go into that tonight, but let me give you an analogy, and maybe we can uncover some of this truth, okay? Let's just suppose that I give you evolution. Let's just use our imagination, because that's what macroevolution is anyway. Billions and billions of years ago in a galaxy far, far away, it's a little fairy tale. We get evolution. We get a little Big Bang out of nothing, by the way, so nothing exploded, and it created everything. So here you got the Earth, it cools down, and you get the first living cell. And it eventually grows into a man, somehow, some way, through macroevolutionary chemical processes. This animal
with the common ancestor of some sort of primate, created the first human being. So let's just now fast forward in time, and now we're seeing the first Homo erectus human being. Are you guys picturing it? He's kind of a caveman. He's probably got the big forehead, but nonetheless, he is a human being coming out of animal processes. Are you guys picturing it?
Yeah.
Okay. So this living thing, this man, this first man, is looking around, and he's hungry. And he has his first thought. And his thought was, I'm hungry and I want a banana. So he looks around, he finds a banana, and he eats it. Now here's my question. He had to use the laws of logic in order to come up with that thought, correct?
Okay.
Okay. So the question is, did he create the laws of logic then and there? Or did it pre-exist this first human being?
Well, let me ask you, how do animals decide that they need to eat?
I'm not talking about animals. I'm talking about the first human being.
No, but it's the same logic, isn't it?
No. No, animals use animal instincts. Human beings think with reason.
You don't think human beings, when they get into certain situations, act very much like animals?
Hey, Felix, when was the last time you saw a monkey use the law of non-contradiction? How about the law of identity? How about the law of excluded middle? Have they ever created a funeral for each other? Have they ever made buildings for each other? Do they ever get married in a wedding with a ceremony and worship God? No, none of those animals do because they're animals.
Didn't you say weeks ago that how did man learn to bury? Either you said or it was on one of the programs that I had seen. They were talking about Cain and Abel. Okay. And when Cain slew his brother Abel, how did he know to? I think it might have been you. How did he know to bury him in the ground? Because
I don't think that was me, but I can give you an answer. You want to know how well? Because remember, Adam and Eve came out of the garden as sinners. They understood what life and death was. They had the knowledge of life and death.
But
they would know. Well, certainly they had to kill animals. They had to learn how to kill animals, and Cain killed Abel. So I don't know how they ritualistically buried his son. I don't know what they did, but they certainly we know the story. What are you getting at? I don't understand.
That the person, the analogy that the person was making was that birds bury their dead. They don't just leave them, on the ground. And it's possible that Cain saw a bird burying its dead, so he did that.
I don't know any bird that does that.
From God. He was hiding.
Can I ask you a question?
What?
What bird buries their dead?
I'm only trying to relate what I saw and heard on this program. Okay.
Right.
That Cain had seen an animal bury something that was dead, and thus he knew that for two reasons. One, he killed his brother. He had to bury him. He had to hide the body from God so that God wouldn't know what he had done.
Okay.
He knew he sinned. He readily, admitted that he had done wrong. He just didn't know what else to do. He didn't know that by striking him, he was going to kill him.
Yeah. I don't know how that relates to animals, though, Mark. I'm talking about animals that have a different instinct than humans. I'm not saying that animals don't feel things. I think that they feel anger, they feel protection, But remember, these are God-given instincts, and just because human beings experience similar things doesn't tell me that our common ancestor was a monkey.